Hey, and welcome to Vegan Steven's Food for All, where I show you the foods I cook in my vegan kitchen, and you should try them too, because it's good for you, your kids, their kids, and the earth. Today I want to show you how I make a Szechuan style stir-fry. China is divided into provinces much like the United States is divided into, well, states. And like our states, each province features its own culinary style. I'm particularly fond of Szechuan cuisine because it's spicy and packed with flavor. I've tamed the spice down a bit from the Szechuan standard, but feel free to alter the chili content to accommodate your curiosity for capsaicin. Not only is the Szechuan stir-fry delicious, it's cost-effective at just $3.31 per serving. Let's check out our ingredients. Whoa, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I'll cover all this as we go, rather than risk boring you with it now. Is that cool with you?
Oh yes, that's cool with us.
Great. Let's begin with some prep before our prep. Pre-prep, you might say. I recommend you complete these steps in the same order I do to maximize time efficiency. To this end, we'll begin with our rice. I enjoy white rice to accompany my stir-fries. If you're making rice, get it measured, rinsed, and combined with water before you start anything else. This way, say your rice takes 20 minutes to cook. You can start it when you're about 20 minutes from finishing the stir-fry, and it will be ready to go when you're ready for it. Next on our pre-prep list, Szechuan peppercorns. These peppercorns are unique to Sichuan province and are the region's signature ingredient. We'll first toast them to release their oils and invigorate their flavor, then grind them to a powder using a mortar and pestle. Last on our pre-prep list is chili oil. Much of Szechuan cuisine is spicy, and making your own chili oil is a great way to add that spice. We'll heat up some oil and pour it over top of red pepper flakes to make the chili oil. Let's get our chili oil started. We'll use 2 tablespoons of this as the oil for our stir-fry. You can use any neutral oil with a high smoke point. I'm using sunflower, but avocado, vegetable, and peanut oil are great as well. I'll be storing my chili oil in this reusable glass jar, so I'll use it as my measurement. Place that in a small saucepan. Next, our chili flake. Oh, I've got a great idea. One sec. I'll use Gochugaru, aka Korean chili flake, alongside the red pepper flake to add something special to my oil. Check out my sesame bok choy video for another use of Gochugaru. In with a half tablespoon of red pepper flake and a half tablespoon of Gochugaru. You could add more or less chili flake to modify the spiciness of your oil. On a heat scale from 1 to 10, I'd rate mine around a 6.5, so use that as a reference point. Set that to the side while we prep our Szechuan peppercorns. We'll use these in 2 ways. First, we'll add them to our stir-fry sauce. Second, we'll sprinkle them over top of our final dish. I'm slightly addicted to these peppercorns. They smell amazing and create a tingling sensation on your tongue as you eat. Might sound weird if you haven't experienced it before, but I love it. Like, really, I love it. More than I love myself. And I love myself a lot, I just love Szechuan peppercorns way more. Sprinkle some of those into a dry pan, about 2 tablespoons. Take your peppercorns and oil over to your stovetop, toast the peppercorns on low for 3 to 4 minutes, and heat the oil on medium-low until you hover your hand over it and it's clearly warm. Fast forward 6 minutes and my oil is heated up. You should be able to easily feel the heat coming off the oil. Okay, let's see if I can film myself pouring this hot oil over the chili flakes without burning the place down. Nice. And here's my lightly toasted peppercorns. Place those in a mortar and grind them to a powder with your pestle. If you don't have a mortar and pestle, place these in between 2 cloths and use the back of a pan to crush them. You could also use a spice grinder. There we are. Next up, our Szechuan sauce. This recipe comes from a food blog called Gimme Some Oven and is adapted to suit a Western pantry. A more traditional Szechuan sauce would include ingredients difficult to source in the Western world. I've made this sauce a few times and made some adjustments. I'll show you how I make it here. I'll also post the link to the original recipe as well as my adjustments in the description of this video. First up, a 1/4 cup soy sauce. I'm eyeballing this one. 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. The sweetness of the maple syrup will balance the spicy elements we'll add to the sauce momentarily. Chinese 5-spice powder. This is a ground mix of cinnamon, star anise, fennel, Szechuan peppercorns, and clove. It smells amazing, but the flavor is quite assertive to my palate, so I'll use less than the original recipe calls for, a 1/4 teaspoon. One tablespoon of rice wine vinegar for acidity to balance the sweetness. 1 tablespoon of chili garlic sauce for some heat. I'm using sriracha, but any chili sauce will do. 2 cloves of minced garlic. Chop the root off these guys. Make a horizontal and some vertical slices. And chop to a mince. Pro tip here, we're going to finely mince a 1-inch knob of ginger as well, so get the ginger going, then combine it with the garlic to finish mincing. Always add a pinch of salt as you're mincing to prevent the garlic from sticking to your knife. And before I get going into this, let's add 1 tablespoon of our ground Sichuan peppercorns to the sauce. Process that to a fine mince. And in it goes. We'll be adding cornstarch to our sauce as a thickener, but I'll hold off on that until I taste my finished sauce. Now I will add one secret ingredient that's not listed in the original recipe. What could it be? What could it be? Oh yes, MSG, aka monosodium glutamate. This stuff has an unfairly bad rap in the West for causing headaches and other negative health symptoms. In reality, there is no evidence that MSG is linked to any health issues whatsoever. In fact, it enhances salty flavors while containing about 1/3 the sodium content of table salt, so it allows you to put less salt in your food. I'm putting a link to the Wikipedia article on MSG in the video description if you want more info. Here's a quote from the article. The perpetuation of the negative image of MSG through the so-called Chinese restaurant syndrome has been attributed to xenophobic or racist biases, with people specifically targeting Asian cuisine, whereas the widespread usage of MSG in Western consumer goods, i.e. processed food, doesn't generate the same stigma. Simply put, folks, MSG is in all kinds of things we Americans eat, but for some reason we only criticize its use in Asian cuisine. We should really save our criticism for things like high fructose corn syrup, which is in loads of things we consume and actually does cause serious health issues. I'm adding the link to the Stuff You Should Know podcasts on MSG and high fructose corn syrup in the video description. Be smart and make your own decisions based on evidence generated by unbiased research. Moving forward, mix your sauce, taste, and add 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. When we cook our sauce, the cornstarch will thicken it nicely. Our chili oil is fully cooled, so strain that into your container. That is gorgeous. Here's a side-by-side for comparison. Set that aside. Now our tofu. This is an 8-ounce package of Trader Joe's extra firm sprouted tofu. I can recommend this, it's good stuff. See all this water it's packed in? We need to rinse the tofu, then press as much water out as we can. This will help the tofu to fry rather than steam. Alas, our veggies. First, scallion. I like to have a bunch of reusable receptacles available for my prepped veggies. You'll see why later. Top and tail. Finally, chop some greens for garnish. And chop the rest into roughly 1-inch segments for the stir-fry. Separate your segments into green and white parts and chop the thicker whites in half lengthwise. We're doing this to even out the cooking time of the thicker whites. Stir-fries are all about cooking times. Because the whites will take longer to cook than the greens, I'll place them in separate containers. Next, carrot. Peel. Top and tail. Slice lengthwise on a bias into planks. Line them up, and chop into thin slices. The carrot will cook in about the same time as the scallion whites, so they'll share a container. When I finally stir-fry, I'll add ingredients from each container based on their cooking times. Now snow peas. These are great because all you need to do is wash them and pick off the tips. You'll notice that I'm including different colored veggies in our stir-fry. I always do this because it makes for a better looking final dish, and different colors mean different nutrients. A well-colored plate is a nutritious one. Our peas will take about as long as the carrot and scallion whites, so in they go. Next, red bell pepper. Slice segments around the core, then chop thin slices, removing any pith as you go. I used about 2/3 of my pepper. The pepper's cooking time will be somewhere in between the scallion greens and the rest of our veggies, so I'll place them in their own container. I'll also add spinach to the stir-fry because I had some extra lying around. I've never seen spinach in a stir-fry before, but I make my own rules. Lastly, shiitake mushrooms. Remove the stems and slice to strips. These will cook in about the same time as the red bell pepper, so in they go. Here's my squeezed and dried tofu. I plan to eat the stir-fry with chopsticks, so I'll prep the tofu so it's easily graspable. First, slice through horizontally. It's important to use the blade of your knife here. Avoid applying unnecessary pressure to the tofu. That'll cause it to break apart. Slice to 1/4-inch strips, and set up your fry station. Here's a large pan on medium heat with enough oil to coat the bottom of the pan. I'm using sunflower oil because of its high smoke point. My oil is nice and hot. I can tell because it has a nice shimmer, it moves around easily in the pan, and it feels warm on the back of my hand. In with a few testers. That sizzle means we're good to go, so in with the rest. Once it's all in, move your oil around to coat the tofu. We'll let this sit on medium heat for about 5 minutes before we check for browning and flip. Parts of your pan are hotter than others, so rotate your pan about 3 minutes in to even out the browning. 5 minutes in now, let's check our tofu. The tofu in the center of my pan was browning nicely, but the tofu at the edges wasn't. So I used chopsticks to move the brown pieces away from the center and pieces that needed browning towards the center. Eight minutes in now, and I'm ready to flip. Some pieces are more brown than others, but no worries, everything will end up relatively even. Let those sit on the other side for about 3 minutes. Then monitor the tofu and flip as needed to achieve browning on both sides. Total fry time for me was 14 minutes. Then I moved my tofu onto a plate for later. Now that our prep is complete, let's stir fry. This is one case where my camp stove is going to prove advantageous to a normal stovetop. I'll crank the heat on high and let my wok heat up until it just starts to smoke. You could use a normal pan for this, but a wok really does make a difference. In with 2 tablespoons of chili oil and move it around to create a non-stick surface. Toss in your carrot, scallion whites, and snow peas, and commence your stir fry, tossing and stirring continuously. One minute into the stir fry, add the red bell pepper and mushroom. Use your tongs to get anything that sticks off the bottom of the wok. If it sticks, it burns. My pan was sticking too much, so in with a touch more oil. 3 minutes in now, add in your spinach and the tofu. Four minutes now, place your stir-fried mix into a dish. Turn your flame off and toss your sauce into the pan, allowing the residual heat to cook the sauce and thicken it. My pan lost too much heat, so I turned the heat back on for 20 seconds or so. Back in with our stir fry. Mix that up. And back to the dish. You could serve this family style, but I need a thumbnail, so here we go into a smaller bowl. Top with sesame seeds, Szechuan peppercorns, and scallion greens. And serve alongside white rice. I hope you'll try this at home. It's sweet, spicy, saucy, and Szechuan. Seriously, Szechuan peppercorns are a gift from the universe itself. This serving cost just $3.31 and it was so good. The only change I would make would be to use low sodium soy sauce because it turned out a bit salty for my taste. Check the video description for a detailed ingredients list and itemized cost breakdown. Support me by subscribing to this channel, telling a friend about it, following me on Instagram, and consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month. Thanks.